Welcome to How to Rock Spirit's Cosmic Consciousness audio series, a collection of spiritual, scientific, and psychedelic musings by Pluto's Corona, a Leo rising Scorpio with Sagittarius moon, born in the year of the metal ram. Pretty much all of these audio entertainments have been a collaborative effort between myself and my friend and producer Al Ginsberg. It is our belief that the truth and everything that can be known is already out there, and we're not here to explain it, we're here to explore it together. For more far-out discussions about spirit, alchemy, psychedelics, yoga, and cosmic intelligence, visit my YouTube channel, How to Rock Spirit, where you'll find a slowly growing database of all of Ram and Dog's psychedelic blogs and audio recordings. Take your time and enjoy the ride, folks, and we'll meet you on the other side. Namaste. The title of tonight's discussion is Contemplation versus Prayer and Meditation. I'm here with my best buddy Al, my friend who's born year of the wood dog, and he's my spiritual ally for life.
It's going.
And so, yeah, I guess I'll start by saying, praying and meditating will not fix your problems by themselves. They will help to ease your pains, but your pains are ultimately caused by your own neglect of what you really need to do for yourself in your life. Hopeful prayer and meditation will not cure your frustration. Your life's frustrations are not caused by a lack of meditation, though if you're not meditating, that may be a part of the problem. It will only be a part of it, however. Your frustration is caused by real, palpable phenomena, real physical conflicts in your life that you have to deal with. Prayer and meditation are certainly important, for they are the keys to attaining the inner resolve necessary to confront the worldly conflicts which life is bound to present you. But prayer and meditation will not absolve your problems in and of themselves. Mere thought and intention will take you halfway to the goal of salvation, but they will not plunge you into the mystical merge. True bliss comes through the marriage of inner intention or will and outer action. The Eastern concepts of Shiva and Shakti can be used as an illustration of this duality. Shiva represents inner intention, and Shakti is manifested power, energy, reality. Since they are synonymous with the Taoist yin and yang, they have many diverse layers of manifestation in reality, Shiva and Shakti. They occur in many forms, but generally they connote the same dualism of willful consciousness and energy. Shiva represents inner will and intention, the magical light of your spiritual designer within, the movie director who makes the grass green, the creative seed intention, that's Shiva. And it relates to what the Christian Gnostics refer to as the Word. Now what follows our spiritual mental word, Shiva, is the physical sound vibration from the mouth, the Holy Ghost, in order for the word to be palpably heard and be given physical dimension as an audible signal. The word is a metaphor for intention, and the sound is a metaphor for the physical vibration in material reality. The sound comes out of the word through us, the son or daughter, the medium, the human medium. And likewise, our worldly actions come out of our inner intention through our willful action. The seed of intention and will is quite useless without Mother Shakti or energy, the ground, the muscle developed on spiritual bones. Shakti can be seen to mean persistent patience and diligence in the creative womb of time and space in this certain sense. Energy is birthed in mother time. So there's intention, and then there's real-world action and persistence, the active opening of oneself into the material world to channel one's true will into time. Intention must develop and manifest into reality through time, or else that seed intention will not grow. Just as the infinite light of the sun cannot grow flowers without some specific spot of soil, without the natural cyclical season in which flowers grow. Flowers take time and the processes of nature in order to grow. The infinite spirit consciousness beyond time, of which we are all kin, needs living energy, manifested energy, in order to really exist. Because reality is the mirror for the infinite. Just as a mind needs a body in order to exist, spirit consciousness needs an immanent, space-time bound variety and manyness and specific forms, finiteness, in order to manifest its design out of infinity. Think of it like an ocean and a river. The one, spirit consciousness, is an ocean of beingness, a great mesh of consciousness of which we are all a part, and in which we all share kinship in our inner observing essence. But in order for that great ocean to exist palpably in space-time, it needs rivers of form and individuality, finiteness, or else it is just a vast ocean with no islands to separate it, no duality to divide it into seen and unseen. Consciousness needs duality to divide it into seen and unseen, observer and observed. I perceive duality like an ocean of eyes, as something Alex Gray might paint after a DMT trip. This relates very strongly to our discussion of contemplation versus meditation. As I said, prayer and meditation help you attain the inner resolve and direction needed to face the real conflicts which you must deal with in your life, but they won't do it for you. Rather, it is your real-world contemplation, understanding, decision, action, and continual persistence in your engagement which will absolve your worldly problems. And there will always be problems, or else you must be dead. Stillness, crystallized stagnance is for the dead, and livingness and motion, and indeed even a sense of even chaos are for the living. If you're not moving, then you're either dead, or else you will have been absolved in inner liberation, the ultimate unobstructedness, and will go no more out, as Alan Watts says. But that, it's a kind of a play I'm kind of saying here. Even then, life will still present its obstructions, only you will be unobstructed in your resolving them. So I'm going to go on a tangent here, but I'll weed it back into the main discussion. Please excuse my Sagittarius moon. I'd like to point out here that this is going to be kind of a theme of a lot of my lectures, is this idea of moksha. And I'm going to point out here that moksha and nirvana are two different things. And this is an important difference for people interested in theology and cosmology to understand, I think. This is from my sort of perspective. First of all, before we define those two, I should say that there's also a distinction between nirvana and illumination, or satori. So I want to explain that first. I would say that the ultimate enlightenment, the great illuminating satori flash, is synonymous with seeing bliss, but not yet being bliss, though being usually follows seeing. This is an important distinction. I would call being bliss more of an active process, a beingness, than a wisdom or knowledge construct, which is what satori and enlightenment consist of. Nirvana is when that satori experience, that flash of an illuminating wisdom, causes the spirit within the person to know itself and therefore become actively involved in the unblinded truth of self-realization in every moment of life, especially through the breath. Nirvana, in a way, stands for the termination of the breath, from, etymologically speaking. It's the termination of the breath from the standpoint of one's separation from the universe, so that the breath and all of one's actions are subsumed by destiny and the nature of the universe. Satori is seeing bliss and seeing the secret key to the inner universal alchemy, seeing the keys to the great work. And nirvana is taking the keys, putting them into the lock, and turning the door open.
So just Satori could almost be seen as like the epiphany, and Nirvana is the application of such epiphany.
Certainly. And if you are acting on the epiphany, then it's kind of acting you.
Yeah.
That's the
like
mystical side of it. And so I wanted to get that point out, the difference between Nirvana and Satori. And yet both of these, as I'm thinking here, both of these are not the same as Moksha. Satori, Nirvana, and enlightenment they're a goal of this incarnation. But Moksha, the ultimate transpersonal object, the notion of the total dissolution of karma present in all of one's incarnations, presents us with a goal which extends not only beyond one's personal incarnation, but also beyond oneself to include one's fellows and all sentient life. Nirvana and enlightenment are the keys to this divine absorption of soul energy into the Holy One. Anyone in this world, any sentient being can achieve enlightenment, though some are more karmically disposed to enlightenment than others, especially in regards to the luck of material providence or material privilege. Unfortunately, in this world, private property still exists, and anyone born without material privilege is bound to have a much harder time reaching enlightenment because realistically, they'll have inadequate education and nutriment which to fuel their organic brain hardware with.
But ultimately, that hardship is gonna be more beneficial in the long run. It may be harder to get there, but due to lack of material means, but that will inevitably
cause more pressure on the spirit, and cause it to grow more.
Like for example, I was never really born into that much material gain, and I still struggle with it on a day-to-day basis, you know.
Yeah.
But me not having that distraction, that material distraction of wealth,
yeah, it allowed you
to really focus on the inner stuff, you know.
Totally. It's like it takes you away from stimulation.
And those born in, like, say, I was born into a really wealthy family who had lots of money and was able to provide for me and stuff like that, I probably would have gone into a totally different style of life, you know.
That's a tough one. See, if we had our buddy here who's a monkey, I'm thinking from his consciousness, and the thing is that you're right. You do get a lot of spiritual growth.
Of course, it's both and.
It's both and, because to have material privilege has a lot of gain, but also a lot of lack, in the sense of exactly everything that you just said. Just like being born without material privilege has its gains and its lacks as well.
Of course.
And I guess what your lessons are depends on what your karma is, and that's kind of what I've got written here as well. But that's right. Both sides are important.
Yeah, both sides are important, you know, because, like, for example, you were born into not necessarily material privilege, but compared to me, you know, you had it easy.
Totally.
In terms of your upbringing.
Yeah.
But you still came to the same realization. Same
mountain. Yeah.
In fact, you came to them first.
Yeah, that's interesting. And that's kind of what I'm getting at with this side that I think that our monkey friend would. He's a Taurus, and he's very sharp about the mercurial reality of things. And he's been burning his consciousness in my brain. And I kind of think that a big part of self-realization is like if you're a yogi and you want to do some sort of spiritual inner meditation, you have to have your posture grounded first. If you're limping and lumping all over the place and your body is slumped over and you literally can't think as well because your body's going to start to feel sore and it's going to pull you out of the spiritual dance. So you got to have the material ground figured out before you can really get to the high end of spiritual reality. Because that's a big part of the tantric bit is bodily consciousness.
Yeah.
Material consciousness for the spiritualist and spiritual consciousness for the materialist.
And that's why I goddamn hate having bad posture. Don't slouch when you're kids.
Don't
do it. It sucks.
It doesn't work out, man.
It's not worth it, man. Comfort isn't worth it.
Nice. All right. So
back to the whole deal, though.
Yeah. In any case, enlightenment eventually leads consciousness to moksha, the ultimate liberating dissolution, where there is no self nor other, but only a mystical singularity, the empty and yet fully fulfilled bliss of One may attain enlightenment in this lifetime, but one may not achieve moksha. For once moksha is achieved, there is no one left for the achieving. That's what I mean by that. All action and beingness will have dispersed in Nishunyata, the void, the mystic other beyond. Now, the ultimate goal of moksha for all sentient life requires the following necessary things before it can fruit out of the universal mother womb of energy and time. It requires, for the seekers of this state, I'm assuming, from what I'm going with, it requires material security for all, yogic bliss, enlightenment, soul advancement, and transpersonally speaking, it requires, vast lengths of time spent in innumerable incarnations. Just as a diamond is formed through vast lengths of time and terrestrial pressures. Those born with material privilege, of course, as I said, such as Siddhartha Gautama, the Buddha, Osho, Yogananda, most Tibetan lamas, have an easier time reaching enlightenment than others, though there are exceptions. Most realized masters probably had the fortunate luck of having been born to able parents who could constructively lead the development of their infantile programming and education, which is an inestimably important time in everyone's life due to our vulnerability to impressions and brain conditioning at that age. But material prosperity and the conditions of one's upbringing, as we may glean from astrology, is all karmic destiny as well. So maybe material fortune is not all luck of the draw. Mm-hmm. Perhaps we make our own luck ultimately in the karmic sense. In any case, if an enlightened being still has more karma to dissolve, they will still be here on earth in time, performing their worldly duties and conducting their dharma, even though in their minds they've already made it within and beyond the present life. That's the flickering image of the bodhisattva, See, all energy and beingness returns to its silent originating source. That is our destiny. Everyone has already made it to moksha down the line, way down the line of incarnation after incarnation, beyond the ticking of the cosmic clock, way downstream. But there's something in the way, Maybe it's Saturn and time, hint, hint. Enlightenment and nirvana are simply necessary keys to fully realizing that inherent divinity waiting within all of us. The historical or the mythological Gautama Buddha may have indeed achieved nirvana, but he stuck around because he still had some karma left to dissolve and some duties left to fulfill.
And if he hadn't stuck around, we wouldn't have his teachings, because if he had just reached moksha, he had just reached moksha and just dissolved into the universe, nobody would have ever known that he reached that, and nobody would have been able to learn from the lessons.
And that would have gotten less universal flux in the long run, because by staying, the universe, he actually,
left an impression.
What is a Buddha but one which makes such an impression? Exactly. It's like the opposite of a black hole. Yeah. It's like a black hole that absorbs karma and ills just by its presence.
Yeah.
That's why it's interesting that the bodhisattva, it means sattva. How there's three gunas? There's tattva, rajas, and then sattva. Yeah. Bodhi means awakened. Yeah. So it's like a bodhisattva is awakened consciousness, or it's like a sattvic energy dissolving or karma dissolving. That's what sattvic means.
Mm-hmm.
Tamas is static, dead. Rajas is active and dynamic.
Mm-hmm.
And sattvic is like dissolving, karma dissolving. It's basically, the better of
Mm-hmm.
the three.
Well, like,
Bodhisattva means like that karma eating light, so to say. That's like I was saying, a black hole of karma. It's like karma. It's like sattva awakened in a person.
yeah, like Alan Watts says in that lecture that we always listen to. He says like Bodhisattva is one who sees the flash of enlightenment and comes back to teach others about it, but only if they'll come back and be cool and teach others as well.
Right. And see, what's interesting is that this has been kind of a big rap that I've been getting out on with my lectures and stuff,
Mm-hmm.
is that the Bodhisattva doesn't choose to stay back.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like they egotistically decide, oh, I'm the better guy because I'm staying back out of compassion.
Mm-hmm.
It's out of, like, true divine compassion is egoless. It just is.
Yeah.
The Bodhisattva doesn't choose to stay behind. It's just
stay behind because
because
they know
the point.
that's what's better.
Yes, and now this is getting at this higher self-realization that I'm talking about, man.
Mm-hmm.
Is moksha means that everybody has equal propensity for self-realization, and that's when human consciousness begins to hum.
Mm-hmm.
Begins to fucking really hum. And but that sort of thing requires material liquidity among all. The sort of communistic sort of like living in a hippie commune kind of idea.
Mm-hmm.
This is an idea that I've kind of haven't fully worked through yet, mind you, so I don't want to go too far into that kind of thing.
Save that for another
lecture. And it's happening. That's a big part of my fucking whole trip right now.
Yeah.
But that will happen.
Keep an eye out for Dusty Cormier 2016.
Stay tuned. You're the fire monkey.
Yeah.
Okay, so let me just see where I was here. So, as I said, the Buddha achieved nirvana, but he stuck around because he still had some karma left to dissolve and some duties left to fulfill. And yet, as an enlightened being, though he was bodhisattvic in that he was still sticking around and people could see and touch him, his psychic head within was way past his physical space-time bound incarnation. The flickering, golden haloed divine aura, which everyone saw him as through their physical eyes, was only a sandy trace of his truly sublimed spirit. His physical being was only the tail of his dragon, though he was fully there and fully erotically present for every slowly peeling moment of time in that incarnation. Since he was a sage, his transpersonal dragon's head of his soul within was already long gone into the mystical, blissful abyss of other on the tailwinds of destiny, a future which we all share. But yet, in a seeming contradiction, he was still simultaneously dwelling amongst the living, palpably, physically. Maybe it's certainly possible that while we're all stuck back here in time, since time and place are an illusion peculiar to each perceiving subject, maybe the Buddha slipped through Indra's net and became absorbed in moksha after he performed all of his miracles and left his body in this incarnation. We don't know. Only the Buddha knows that. Maybe it's possible that he still had another life to go through because he still had some very subtle karma left to dispose of. Maybe his spirit sublimated into subtler realms of causality, into the astral and celestial planes, where thinner vibrations than those of the earth plane are played, consolidated in the melodies of the soul. The main reason I'm bringing this whole thing up, in relation to the present topic of contemplation versus meditation, is simply this. Even when a person has achieved nirvana, or inner enlightenment in this life, they will still have problems to deal with in space-time reality, just as all the blessed sages of India and all the world's mystics still have worldly problems, and they still have dharma to fill, and they still brush their teeth. or else they wouldn't be here. They couldn't be seen. The only difference between those enlightened sages and bodhisattvas and the regular worldly citizen is that the sage's perspective on the inside is different. The Buddha had problems. People came to Gautama Buddha with all sorts of variable life travails and malign states of consciousness, and he compassionately straightened them all out without ever having a problem with any of it. He took their problems as his own and didn't see them as a burden. He didn't skip a beat. Nothing could ruffle the smooth surface of his serene inner pond. See, the problem with people in this world is not that they have problems, because they always will. The problem is thinking that their problems are a problem. Enlightenment is a function of the inner dimension of a person. Recognize, however, not only that he had no inner trouble with solving his problems, which the world presented to him, but he also did it. He actively engaged in the phenomenon of worldly salvation in the outer world, the material world. We are marrying transcendentalism and materialist philosophy here. The Buddha had indeed achieved nirvana and illumination, the Satori flash. But when he achieved it, he didn't escape off into a mountain retreat and stare at the walls all day in order to keep himself in tune with the mystical vibration which he had experienced. Like Prometheus, the Buddha stole the fire from Mount Olympus and brought it down to earth below. The Buddha healed the sick. He sat and conversed among the lowly. He counseled the highest Brahmins in philosophical and wisdom matters. He traveled bare-fisted in harsh weather, faced his karma, dealt with his destiny, and went into the mystical worldly merge with no qualms. He actually acted in the world. He contemplated, made decisions, and positively carried them through in physical reality. Prayer and meditation were a necessary half-step in these worldly efforts, but the Buddha knew that prayer and meditation would only take him to the edge of the abyss and would not fling him into it. Buddha didn't just go into the abyss, he was the abyss in all aspects of his being. He reflected it and it reflected him. So prayer and meditation are only half the battle, and they're a necessary half for sure. Some would say that it is more important to start with the inner half of being centered within prayer and meditation. But I like to think my Venus in Libra inclines me toward the equal spread of pertinence on either side, giving equal weight to both jnana and kriya, by which I mean giving equal weight to both knowledge, jnana, or wisdom is also called jnana, and action, kriya, balancing jnana and kriya, wisdom and action. Because while there are certainly a lot of active worldly people with no internal center, especially in today's time, the age of Aquarius, there are people doing marketplace things, worldly things, and they don't have an internal center, a spiritual center. As true as that is, Lord knows there are also a lot of spiritual mystics out there in the world who have that sort of that internal center, but just don't know what to do with themselves and their latent physical and psychic Shakti energies. Kundalini. The other necessary half of prayerful inner direction and meditative centeredness, which the transcendentalists go for, the spiritualists. The other necessary half of that prayerful inner direction and intention is marrying that inner resolve with persistent action and patient diligence in the creative mother womb of space-time. Shiva's creative seed intention, the inner will to act and do, is nothing without Shakti's grounded womb of passion in time and space. Contemplation is key here. The contemplation and meditation are not one and the same thing. That's the point of this lecture. Contemplation is something you do with your mind in time, whereas meditation is more like an undoing, an erotic, zen-like easing into one's natural state of beingness. They're both important. I would say that contemplation is an action of the logos conscience, whereas meditation is a receptivity to or a surrendering into the pleasant blissfulness of eros and the subconscious. To contemplate is to use the discerning faculty of the mind patiently and diligently to figure out where you're at and where you should be spending your energy for best effect. Contemplation is the other necessary side to the otherwise, primarily faith-based practices of prayer and meditation. I guess meditation is not really faith-based, but anyway. Contemplation requires presence and diligence, which we would call the marriage of Shiva's creative seed, intention, and inner mark or design with Shakti, the patient womb of energy, passion, persistence, and time. If your intention is to sing a song, you don't want to do it quickly and badly just to get the thing over with. You must combine the words and the intention to sing with the diligent act of singing itself in order for the song to be performed well. Likewise, if your intention is to improve your state of feeling sad and frustrated in your life, you have to combine the knowledge and inner intent to prove your situation with the action of improving it itself. Intent is not enough, and the first action you should take, so far as action goes in balance with meditation, first action should be contemplation, in order that your chosen decision and subsequent action may be appropriately refined by the mystical tides of your own gray matter and the data workings of your mind. Then once you believe you've contemplated enough, act, verbify, improve your situation, put in the sweat and move the gears, and never stop meditating. Keep praying too. But when you pray for inner direction from subtler forces or a higher intellect, a higher order, let your prayer be a means to your spiritual ends rather than being an end in itself. Bliss, yoga, and enlightenment, or in other words, self-realization, should be the end in itself. Illumination leads to bliss. Bliss leads to yoga, which is union. The ultimate union of yoga means the completion of all the cosmic element phase cycles which make up one's psyche and soul and one's astral karma blueprint. This is self-realization and the manifestation of one's true will. Let your prayer be a means toward that end. Because a lot of people think prayer is the end, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
God, fix it,
Do this thing for me.
Yeah.
I feel shitty. I don't like my job. Give me a new one. It's like
You can do it yourself,
do
man.
shit yourself. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
I ain't your God, bitch.
They say yoga is like the union of mind, spirit, and body, right? And like through that, like that's where like the ultimate means come in,
That's psychedelic. If any parts of that trifold, that triune being, the mind, spirit, and body, if any of those are missing a part or missing whatever,
out of balance,
it's
not going to work properly.
And that's what self-realization is all about.
Mm-hmm. For sure. Well, that's just one part of it.